Guys, this is Tired Goth, and you are watching the Threat Intel 102 series. This is a new series that I've developed to discuss with you the many different types of attack methods, threat models, and things to look out for in this world. Things that maybe your parents didn't know how to tell you, things that maybe your friends weren't brave enough to tell you. Whatever the case is, I am here to clarify some things for you. So, this episode is going to be about something especially invasive, something that has impacted many people, something that has destroyed lives. So have some of the other things I've mentioned in previous videos, but we are going to go claws in to this particular segment. This segment has to do with romance scams. And moreover, not just romance scams, but the methods that are used to keep people trapped, to keep people bound to their assets or lack thereof, so that they can collect payouts and many other methods, not only tangibly that occur, but as an extension of one of my other videos, if you've been following the series so far, the intangible ways that people are able to figure out when to trap people, which is a primary issue that people aren't necessarily aware how people are doing this, how people are detecting them, how people are actually stalking them without being present. I would like to leave a quick note with the audience here. If you are not 18 or older, ask for supervision to be here. And if you are interested in this particular segment, know that there is a trigger warning here for some especially emotional content. It's not a very savory topic. It's actually quite sad. So, without further ado here, let's get into this. So, I would like to begin by saying there are many ways that a person can be stalked. I've been stalked. I can tell you there are many ways that a person can be stalked. You can be physically hunted down in the street. You can be followed around by vehicles. You can be doxxed on the internet, and someone can acquire your home address, or illegally in that particular case. If information that you have provided to your healthcare providers ends up in the hands of an ex who happens to become an EMT or something like this, they could have access to pertinent records that involve you without you knowing it. And they are an ex for a reason. They're not meant to be returning, right? But this doesn't resonate with people who have intentions to continue using you long after you're out of the picture, as bait, as fodder, as food. This is tying in with some anarcho-primitive concepts here, where people have taken the internet and turned it into a jungle where we hunt each other. Except not all of us are hunting. Some of us are job hunting, sure, some of us are foraging, but there are people here who consider themselves to be human carnivores. Right? So, it's not to dismiss you as a literal carnivorist, right? Whatever you are, whatever you call yourselves when you eat nothing but meat. But the anarcho-primitive concept of asset handling here is what we're discussing, and it is a dark, dark place. People consider themselves to have their own hierarchies, and I'd like to show you how easy it is to figure out what someone is doing. This is a deck of cards, right? You can play cards with it. You could probably play anything but go fish with it. That's not what these are for. This is a Lenormand deck. The Lenormand deck has a series of pictures on it that look like a regular playing card, but it has numbers that far supersede the count of 52. In some cases, tarot decks have 70-something cards, and I think it's like 72 or 73 cards or something like that total. And each of these depictions have a regular card suit pointed out on them, if you could see that in the bottom corner there, the King of Diamonds there, or it's actually referred to as the King of Pentacles if you're making cartomancy references. Cards like these are depicted the way that they are with these images because each intuitively points someone to read them intuitively. Now, when I say intuitively, it means that the image itself will have parts of itself stand out as indicators of what the message from the card is. Now, while this isn't a series teaching you how to read tarot cards, because I can't teach something like that, at least I don't know exactly how to teach your mind to do that. That is rather it. I can tell you all about it. I can't teach your mind to strategize within your experience, which is what you would actually be doing with your intuitive reasoning there. But I want to show you how easy it is to figure out a timeline for a stalker who is using these cards. Now, before you blame the cards and say all tarot readers are evil people, no. That's like saying every person who has handled a syringe is a doctor. That's not true. And not all people should be banned from using syringes just because there are people who use it to shoot up drugs that are outside of a medical facility. It is to say that the mind is the danger, not the tool. Okay? But I'm going to show you indicators in this video as well of what it feels like to be psychically stalked by a deck of cards like this. They all feel the same, more or less. There are tells, very genuine tells, collections of them that you can pull from that all have the same indicators that something might be wrong intuitively for you, for your psychic pickup there. Even if it's not developed, you would be able to feel something about it. But we'll get to that in a moment. If you happen to shuffle a deck of cards as an attacker, right? And you see, I'm just arbitrarily picking out some cards from the deck here, right? If you see cards like this, right? You have a person. It could be a man or a woman. It just indicates the energy. It could be someone standing in masculine or dominant energy, right? Or giving energy. There could be a ring. There could be a key. Now, these two cards, if you know what they mean just by defining them, this is a contract of some kind, and this is success, right? These two cards indicate successful contracts. So this person standing in a giving energy wants to give a successful contract to this woman who is indicated here. There could be communication about this with this ace of spades here, or the ace of swords, right? If you know your suits, you would understand how to decrypt this information. But what it is here is if this shows up in a reading for a person who is stalking someone, they don't stop attacking the person until they see something like this, the change indicated by the stork card, going in another direction, right? Now, why would they do that? What would be their sign to do this? And what is their measure of the risk for how long it would take to be able to accomplish this change? The way a person would read that is with an indicator at the top of any of the cards based on the numbers. You see the Roman numerals up here? If someone sees this person in 2 days is about to offer this contract, 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 whatever, 2 years, they follow these cards and take notes. You see the 2 at the top? Not the clover, not the pretty picture, but the 2, the 2 Roman numerals at the top. If these cards are pulled and they say when, and something like this comes up, or something like this comes up as a time frame, by judging by the numbers at the top. So this one says 24, for example, right? If there's a time indicator, that's when they start hexing the situation. They start throwing objects on the cards. They start making voodoo dolls. Depending on how much time they have, there is extensive work that is done, and they wait for a signifier that something has gone wrong with the contract being offered to let off and keep doing it. They check for that to see if what they're doing is working. Okay? So I'm going to set these down here now. When a person is trying to entrap someone, their main goal is to check for certain events they don't want to happen, which is usually fruitful for the person that they're attacking, right? These are fruitful events. These are celebrations. These are things that are being noticed. They could be providing some sort of comfort, insight, opportunities, whatever it is, to the person that they're attacking. And the person who is attacking them does not want this to happen for their own selfish reasons. So what do? They continue to hex the person. They continue to stalk the person. They continue to watch the person. Some indicators, mind you, of being stalked psychically as opposed to physically, which we're more aware of, like phone calls that we don't want, phone calls from blocked numbers that repeatedly call us, things to incite anxiety, blocked anything with its message returning to you, right? Coming to you, I should say, is an indicator that someone does not want their identity necessarily to be known. But it's also within the context, right? If you have no issue with this person and you remain in contact with this person and they're just trying to like obfuscate, it's the same thing, except it's not the same context. They're not stalking you. They're trying to protect themselves as they're contacting you, right? It's not quite the same. Again, this comes back to the mind of the person who is employing these types of tools. If a person is not verified to be sound of mind to be handling these types of tools, if they are not sound, especially not even just of mind, because there's arguments left and right about how sound it is for a person to be relying on a deck of cards to tell them anything, right? It sounds cuckoo to a lot of people still today. Although I'm not sure why, because one of the most insane things I have ever heard is someone trying to say that someone delivering them veritable messages that have happened is just crazy for being able to do that to protect people. When I've seen the proof of what has been saved, right? Anyway, if a person is proven to be able to do these types of things with good intentions, just as with anything, that's a good thing. Now, how do you test something like that? Well, I can promise you that if you are around certain people and suddenly afterwards you feel like there are eyes on the back of your head, that is not a person with good intentions for these tools. If you feel at any point that you are smelling things that are nowhere near you, like candle wax, if you are feeling strange sensations in your body likened to illness, but you're not sick and you didn't feel sick maybe 5 minutes before the onset, and it had nothing to do with food, this could also be an issue that you want to pay attention to, because someone could be draining your life force. Another thing you really want to pay attention to, this is impossible to ignore, but you have to be in touch with your body through meditation to know this. And meditation sometimes is just sitting still and like knowing what your body is supposed to feel like, and it's like out of box state, you know what I mean? Like undisturbed by anything, undisturbed by events, nothing. Right? The way that it feels when a person hexes you actually feels like someone took a straw and started pulling something you can't define off of your body. And it feels like something tingly that you already had, almost like a necklace or something. Like, you know, a very thin necklace, how it feels when it drapes across your skin. If something like that feels like it's being lifted off of your body, but it's not actually touching you, someone is siphoning your energy. Now you may ask, well, how the hell am I supposed to know that? I could feel 130 things a day and not really know what any of them are, and you're telling me to pay attention to whether or not I feel a pins and needles sensation. pulling off of my body. Actually, yeah, because it's not actually a sensation that is touching you. It's a sensation that is dragging something that belongs to you away from you, as if someone is reaching into your purse and physically dragging a necklace out of it. And why do people do that? If people sense in any way, shape, or form that you have abilities in cognizance, meaning your intellect, your ability for insight, your ability to manage your finances, or at least you appear like you have it together, or if they're looking for something specific like this, which they will use the cards or other indicators to see and look for, they see a card, or two cards in this case, like this, together. Let's say three. A successful divine concept is energy that is considered a sacrifice to the powers that be that are fighting good. Okay, I'm going to explain why. Notice how I pulled the ring card a few times to give you pretty good insight into what this is, right? When we're talking about attacks in general, we're talking about what a person intends to gain. Because apparently people still believe that war is the only way to acquire resources. We see it in politics all the time. We see it in information exchanges all the time. We see it in corporate competitions every day, right? We see it every day in each of those topics. But what is not being, what we don't see, what is not being unveiled right here to you, is when you have these competitions, there is only one side really trying to compete, and it's for the sake of theft. And there are many ways to steal from a person. There are many ways to steal from a person's health, their bodily autonomy, their assets, and what they intend to protect. There are many ways to do that. But these are all contracts, right? Now, why would a person look for those three cards? The divine contract and the sun and whatever. Why is it so important? Because if a person is destined for something, like this card indicates with the coffin in reverse with the focus here, being placed on someone who appears to be overseeing a realm, overseeing the rest of what goes on beneath. And this person could also be backed by some very powerful energy here. Could be ancestral energy. It could be things that they were chosen to do by God. There are a number of ways to interpret the literal things here. But the most important thing that they're paying attention to is the nature of the contract and how valuable it is. Now, suppose, whether or not you're of a faith, supposing you have a person who is really special. You just notice that they have impeccable luck with some things, right? They always get like first dibs on the best job. They get good intel. They, whatever it is, whatever they have, you look at them and you're like, how did you land that, right? Whether or not you belong to a faith, there are some people who simply exist to show you that it's possible, right? Now, these people who exemplify this, these people are hunted for their abilities to attract these things with ease. This is a frequency resonance, right? And there are attackers who harvest this. There are people who use cards like this the same way that good intentioned people use these cards, but not the same way that good intentioned people apply their knowledge with these cards. Good, well-intentioned people, let's correct my grammar here. Well-intentioned people who use and practice tarot or any kind of cartomancy will not send eyes to follow you out of the room once the reading is over. They will not spy on you. They will not burn candles to draw you back to them. They won't do it. They will give you the information and let you walk freely with it to entertain it at will. Your dignity will always feel like it revisit a list. You won't walk away feeling like something was stolen from you, feeling scoffed, rejected. You won't feel that way, right? People who have malicious intentions with these tools will not let you feel a sense of peace at all after they're done with reading, because for sure they're not done with you if you've piqued their interest. And that's what you need to be very, very careful about. Powerful tools like this are not meant to be abused, but they are. And the interesting thing about this here is it doesn't stop in the spiritual. Supposing a person sees that a divine contract is in place, they're like, well, what do I do to become successful with this person? And if they are not in alignment with good prayer and good tactics, but they are spiritual, they will intuit messages from all over the spiritual realm, and none of those are necessarily completely holy. And I can assure you, there are realms that attempt to contact us and tempt us. And more so, more often than not, people are led to make decisions like forcing a person to get pregnant to latch on to a future indicated success, forcing them to bear their child so that they can't leave the relationship. This is called entrapment. This, I don't care what you refer to it as, this is called the removal of one's bodily autonomy. Okay. Yes, I'm stuttering. Yes, this is actually a quite difficult piece of content to speak through as a female. These things don't just stop where they appear, is what I'm trying to get to. So while it's more obvious that a person, could be hunted down in the street and have to call the police and say, hey, look at this. This is a problem. Why is this happening? The first thing a police officer is not going to say is, wow, he must be possessed. Let's take him to the church. Let's throw some holy water on him. Nope. You're going to say, okay, well, we have to arrest this person because they got caught doing something that's completely against the free will of apparently one or both of you at this point. We don't know, right? So these are the types of things that have saved people's lives, for sure. But the root of why they're happening maybe hasn't been established or covered completely at its core, at its root, right? At its central dissection. And what is necessary to consider here, for all fairness, is this: if you are being roped into something against your will, there are not a lot of obvious signs these days that it's happening until you're already there. And people have been obsessive. People have been, awkward in their dealings. This is something that happens. This. I'm not talking about people with abandonment issues. I'm not talking about people who are failing to get a good sense of their own personal security due to trauma. I'm not talking about CPTSD. What I'm talking about here are people who are happy to destroy other people's lives and don't care about how it happens. They don't care about what they have to do to assure these types of things. Now, one of the reasons I'm bringing this up here, right, is sometimes people will do this outside of the love scam thing, that usually resonates with romantic partners. Like, suppose you meet someone online and someone pulls cards on you and finds out you're like a Bitcoin trillionaire or something, right? And they're like, oh my gosh, I need to cast a spell on this person right away so they fall in love with me. Me personally, I don't know what would possess a person to do that, because if you were at all interesting, they would just like you for who you were. But here's my other interjection to my own salty opinion there, because I don't like scammers. I'm kind of salty about scammers. I don't like them, right? But I don't know. It's kind of like when you get when you get to a position where you have to pull cards to follow someone around, like it's probably they just they'll come back around if they were ever gonna come back around, right? But on a sadder note, I know that it's entertaining to talk about that part of it, right? The way that we have, but there's actually a very serious tone to what I'm about to say. Love scams are not exclusive to people who are chatting in a romantic way online with intentions to date one another. Romance scams can be of the romantic draw, the romanticizing something, having a fantasy type of life, an easy life, a carefree life with one's own family members, being promised the world by your family, and then finding out you're their scapegoat, that you were the one who was intended to be cast out, sacrificed, thrown away, left to groomers, left to traffickers, left to people who would illegitimately adopt you and misuse you as a person for their own agenda without you knowing that they arranged it. Okay? We don't talk about this enough. These are still romance scams. People who are growing up in others' households are falling into these scams when they're children. I don't even want to say children. I want to say infants, toddlers, people who have not fully formed their minds or their consent to anything. And adults who evidently are lacking consciences are doing this. I want to talk about why this gets really weird here. Okay? Let's make a threat model together, okay? Someone is a witch and they are in a family. No one knows they're a witch. Maybe some do, but they're scared of this person. This witch pulls cards on a baby that was presented to them, looking for energy. Why are they looking for energy? Why am I looking down as I'm saying this? Because it disgusts me that people do this. Okay? I don't see eye to eye with this type of behavior. If this witch is looking for energy because they need to pull on it to be successful and create an inventory of everyone else's information, personalities, and achievements for themselves, to harvest it and to sit in it and bask in it and use it for other rituals. Anybody. And unfortunately, some especially unscrupulous people do not spare minors from this circumstance. In an even worse circumstance that I'd like to present here, there are some human traffickers who will clear the child as veritable for sale with cards. A person who is a designated witch will pull cards and check to see what the future of the child will bring in the way of success to the family, and then say, okay, we'll pay for the child. Why would they do that? Because whether or not that family is even in their right mind at all, there is the worst consideration that it could spiral into a sexual ritual that would attack the child and harvest from them. Think about it this way. If you're involved with a family witch who's already scanning people's energy to see what they could steal, not to protect yourself, but to steal from someone, and that is the nature of their work, then there's no telling what the rest of the family might be doing. Okay? So, to put it succinctly here, you are dealing with a realm that is not often uncovered for what it does because people don't want it to be exposed what they're capable of and why they're doing it and who it's helping. Okay? That's what a lot of the secrets of the occult come from. Not wanting to be exposed for what it is that they do to target people and how they do it and how they follow them and how they track how it's going. Okay? So There are some people who can do this psychically as well. They'll get psychic insights not from cards, but literally from the demons that they talk to. They will petition help, as some of us do, from God, but from the other side of God, the side that fell from God. And these sides of God that fell into the ether and were buried in the firmament, they're very eager to please people who want to work with them, because while they are inevitably forced to turn to God and betray on behalf of God, to entertain God as an apology to him, which is why the people who worship these entities suffer so horrifically. They still entertain the idea of pleasing you first. So they're very quick, they're very effective, they're very sneaky. Not in a good way, not in an impressive way, but in a very hurtful way, with what it is that they require, with what it is that they look for specifically to create weakness in the target, spiritually speaking or otherwise. This, too, is a frequency, but it's a very low frequency. The frequency of God is quite high, immeasurably high, really, but we can only reach so high. A lot of us are unable to reach the whole frequency, but